welcome once again to Take Your Pick. I'm your host, Chris Puma. Hello. And today we head off to space, the final frontier. These are the choices of the starship Take Your Pick. Its continuing mission to explore fun topics, to seek out hot takes and hidden gems, and to boldly pick what no panelist has picked before. That's right, we're picking out Star Trek The Next Generation episodes today. But what is a Star Trek The Next Generation? Well, Wikipedia defines it as a, quote, American science fiction television series spanning 178 episodes over 7 series set a century after the events of the original series. True enough, Wikipedia, you win this round. But what is it about the show that has made it so popular and enduring for so many people? Now, it's not Wikipedia's job to tell us this, after all. They have to stay neutral, right? But it is up to our panelists to give us a little insight into that matter today. So, helming the bridge this week, we have in the randomly selected order that they will be picking their picks from the Tolkien podcast By the Bywater, decked out in all the colors of a reading rainbow. It's Lieutenant Commander Jared Pekacek.
I'm just a red shirt. I'm not in charge here.
Popping his head out from the holodeck, it's musician, videographer, and all-around creative type Lieutenant Commander Stephen Kozik.
You are hearing me talk. You are hearing me talk.
Making a companion out of spare parts he found around the ship, it's my co-host on the MST3K podcast, It's Just a Show, Lieutenant Commander Adam Clark.
Data, something's got me!
Currently on mat leave, it is the mother creature, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Wilson.
You're muted.
Who is muted for some reason? Oh no!
He's in an alternate soundless dimension.
There you go.
I was mothering.
Stop mothering me. Where was I? And finally, his mother is the holder of the sacred chalice of Ricks. From This Is Your Mixtape, it's Lieutenant Commander Mikey Collins.
As soon as COVID is over, I'm off to Ryza.
And although I'm nominally in charge of the ship, I'm busy working on a new composition for my Resican flute, so I won't be making any picks this episode. But you, dear viewer, if you're watching this live, please comment about our panelists' pick, and at the end of the show, you'll have a chance to propose a pick that they missed. That's why we do this live, after all, and we've already got our first comment in it. See, it'll appear just like this. You'll say, "Live long and prosper," which I think is a Star Trek reference. Okay, that said, I'm going to sit back with my tea Earl Grey hot and let Jared take the stage. Jared, engage.
Oh God. Okay. So my first pick, I gotta get it in before anybody else gets it, because I know this is going to be everybody's favorite. They're going to want to talk about it. First series episode, Haven.
Yep.
Where a plague ship threatens a vacation planet. This is not a good episode. Let me just get this out of the way. It's not a good episode, but I love it so much. It's the introduction of Loxana Troy, who is like all of the Golden Girls at once. It's so not good. But anyway, the show's still trying to find a tone at this point. They haven't really settled on what they're going to be. Armin Shimmerman from DS9 shows up as a silver box full of jewelry. It's they thankfully decided this was not the tone they were going to go for. It still has some of the weird permeable reality of the original series, where humans sometimes have telepathic ability and can do weird stuff, and monsters just show up and everything. Anything can happen. It doesn't fit the show at all. The tone does not fit, and that's why the episode is so bad. But it's so funny. Watching Majel Barrett just be a complete ham. The way she weaponizes Venezuelan culture with that dinner chime thing that goes off every 30 seconds or whatever to just irritate people that she hates. The clothes that she wears, the completely ludicrous drawings that her intended son-in-law comes up with. Sorry. It's high camp. This episode is high camp.
I'm so glad Loxana got in there right at the start.
Yeah. Oh, no, I love her. She is... I know she gets on a lot of people's nerves. I know she also is beloved by just as many people. Yes. And that vine that she has as a pet is also I don't know. There's so many weird little touches that make this episode... If it was just a little different, it would be an all-time great. But since it's not a little different, it's an all-time low.
So I went looking for an image to go with this, and I found. Oops, that's not it.
There's a lot of good ones.
Oh, I hope it's the box. Give us the box. Give us the
Is
box.
it the box with
The
the
box
person's
is
face
good.
on it?
Oh,
Yeah.
the box with the
All right, I
box.
did
Yeah.
find that. No, that's not it either. Where did it go?
It seems like this like stupid rhyme or something to Deanna Troy when and it just like pops open and jewels come out.
Yeah,
It's-
you really expected to say
Mhm.
wish? Did somebody say wish?
No, well, I'll add that one in a second. First,
I
let's
did not.
discuss-
I did not remember that being Armin Shimmerman, but that is fantastic. I love that.
A Star
This?
Trek lifer.
Oh,
What's this
yeah.
about?
These are
What
the
is
plague
this? Can
people.
you
These are the
explain?
Corellians.
That's Florida, everybody. That's Florida.
The Florida planet.
That's a ship full of really sick people.
It is.
That's what
yeah.
that is.
So if you haven't seen the episode, these people show up at the planet Haven, and they are the survivors of a world that was devastated by plague. And the people of Haven don't want the ship to make contact with the surface because then they'll infect everybody. Everybody will die. And the Enterprise is basically given the choice between not letting them land and destroying them because they're insisting on landing. And then at the same time, Deanna Troy is getting married, but then she doesn't.
You know, and as you can tell from the image, the plague mostly affects their hair.
Yeah. So she's got yeah.
I don't know. That was pretty normal back in the 80s, as I remember. There.
Oh my god, yes. Yes.
And what is that? It's
a box.
It's full of wedding gifts for Deanna Troy. They
Mhm.
beam it
Of
up,
course it is.
and then she's
Of
like,
course it
it
is.
talks to her, and then it pops open.
It's this weird kind of like incursion of like Dungeons and Dragons energy in that item. Like,
Yeah. Oh, the whole. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, that was a fantastic way
So
to
good.
start. Kozik, you're up next. What are you going to bring to the table?
Okay, I'm gonna go heavy, and I want to talk about Cause and Effect. That's season 5,
Ooh.
episode 18, and so I would say that it's probably my all-time Trek episode, and probably because number one, I'm a real sucker for any time travel kind of thing. And the greatest execution of time travel in sci-fi, I believe, is the time loop concept. So Cause and Effect obviously leans on that very heavily. The idea that, you know, there's people that are trapped in a time loop that have to kind of repeat a day over and over and over again. And for some reason, they only remember the smallest pieces. It's almost just like a sense of deja vu that they get as they experience it over and over again. And it's just funny to see them try to fight the inevitable until they finally come across the actual solution to get out of the time loop, which is that the data is able to transmit over his positronic network the number of pips on Riker's collar to know that Riker has the right call and what to do to avoid the big disaster. And the best part about it is at the end, we find out that Kelsey Grammer is piloting the starship that keeps blowing up the Enterprise, which is just the greatest thing ever. It's because it's like Kelsey Grammer had been trapped in that time loop for, I think, like 80 years and hadn't figured it out. And, you know, Picard and his crew figured it out in like, 3 tries or whatever it was. But it's just, yeah, that episode is fantastic. First of all, because it just begins with the Enterprise exploding. And I mean, it's like, what a better way to just start an episode with, yep, that's the worst thing that could ever possibly happen. And now we can kind of continue. And it really used the format of the series well to always use the breaks in the time loop to time with the commercial breaks. So with each commercial break, you would start a new time loop, which is like a really great way to kind of set up the format to work with, what its limitations actually are.
That is cool.
Yeah. I believe that the starship that Kelsey Grammer is on is the USS Tossed Salad and Scrambled Eggs.
I have this very vivid memory from childhood of Data, the penny dropping when he realizes the number of pips on Riker's collar, and that clues him in to do Riker's plan. I guess it was the way it was directed or something, but it was a very satisfying little moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you don't really know what the clue there he
I love
is.
it.
Look it up, and that's Star Trek 5 era starship. It's so great. The Reliant class, maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, it's really close.
I love
anyway,
those uniforms too.
yeah,
Yes,
the
these movie uniforms.
the collars that are like winter coats as well, like very
Yes.
good.
I really like the way also that episode uses like they play poker throughout the show, and then it gets repurposed for different things depending on the plot. But in this one, they use it to like show that people are subconsciously realizing what's going on, and Data's able to shuffle the deck to like do different things without realizing it. And yeah, the way that random chance becomes something else over the course of the episode.
The only downside of the episode is the creepiness of seeing Bev Crusher in her nightgown every time loop. I don't know. Kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Oh dear.
Which nightgown is this? Because oh man, I love some of her nightgowns.
She's got some great looks over the course of this.
I'm pretty sure it's pink
Yeah.
and lacy, and yeah, she's
Yep.
she's like trimming a
She
flower
had like
and
a little
enjoying.
pink bow.
Yeah, she had a little pink
Yes,
bowl, and
yes.
she enjoys a glass of champagne every night before bed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Most
image
We can already
importantly-
aspire to that.
Most importantly, which one of her wigs is it?
The one with the bow.
What, it's
The
season
one with the
5?
bow. That's season
Yeah,
5.
that's
Yes.
pretty good. Yeah. So she's got pretty good hair by this point.
Mhm, mhm.
Not that
That's the
deep
important
fire red business.
Yes.
Rather than like the laser things that everybody else uses for this kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm using my space scissors.
Yeah.
There she is.
I love that weird bow in her hair. Like, what is that doing?
It's keeping her head on.
Even she looks
Very
confused as to why it is there.
Oh, I love Beverly.
Yeah.
Weird
Hey.
costuming choices
Yep.
for the female characters on a Star Trek episode.
Listen, the male characters also
Every-
have awful loungewear.
Yes, as anyone
Oh my
who's
goodness,
seen
that
Picard's
shirt.
booty shorts.
Yeah, I assume we're
A
going to
lot of
talk
chest.
about. I assume we're probably going to talk about schisms at some point, where you get to see Riker's leisure wear.
Yeah.
His blue.
Well, Adam,
His blue, yes.
I think you've been challenged, but is that what you're going to go with for your first pick?
No, actually, I'm going to potentially snipe some folks. I'm going to go with an obvious choice here, but I have decided to go with what many see as an all-time great, and I would agree, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1.
Nice.
Yeah. This is Star Trek. One of the few times that Star Trek is genuinely frightening. Basically, the Borg are back, but this time they're no longer just stealing parts and they're no longer focused on technology, but instead they are going to harvest human beings. Oh, well, I guess all beings. But there's this level of body horror that's there that you normally don't get in Star Trek. And I have to go with, like, what can be said about one of the greatest cliffhangers of all time? A lot has been over the years, but there's one really cool thing that never really gets noticed, and indeed it's something that does the heavy lifting for this episode, is the score by Ron Jones, who is a great composer who worked on the first 4 years of Star Trek TNG. He scored this episode, and one of the neat things that he did is right before the famous cliffhanger music, is that he did something that signaled that things were going to go really, really badly to my child mind in a way that I understood and never really thought about musically before, which is that when they see Captain Picard and he's all Borged out and he's ruined and he's seemingly incurable from having been Borgified, which of course Part 2 will undo, is that he plays the Star Trek theme in a minor key. And it's one of the creepiest and most memorable things about the episode. And it was one of those things that, as a child, made me go, oh, this might be permanent.
I just got
Yeah.
goosebumps remembering that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Oh, it's such a powerful moment.
Yep.
The music in general creates such a feeling of unease. Which is again, like you say, really sort of several notches higher than what you expect from a Star Trek episode. Like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of thoughts on this episode for sure. And I think the biggest one is that as an audience, you really thought that maybe that was a transition point, that Riker was going to become captain, Picard was going to be written off, maybe he'd appear again later like Tasha does, right? But there was a real thought in your mind like, because this was before the days of spoilers where you would go like, no, he's signed to contract. There's no way they're getting rid of this guy. Like that was a real possibility. And the other thing that I think is fascinating is that I feel like TNG spent the rest of its seasons chasing that high and never achieving again. Every time they would get to the season end, they would try to do another similar cliffhanger where you thought maybe Picard's going to be gone, and it just never was as good as it was in Best of Both Worlds.
Well, that's what gave us that terrible two-parter in which it's like, hey, did Data die after he met Mark Twain? Stay tuned, I guess.
I hate that episode so much. I don't skip many of them, but I skip that one.
Yeah, that is a time travel episode fail, which is hard to do. So yeah.
Oh man, but like this is also kind of peak Borg, right? Like this is when the Borg are the most
I
terrifying.
like that episode. Anyways,
San Francisco. There are parts that I like.
I do like parts of that. Yeah. Anyways,
but like the Borg were never so terrifying or never so effective as they are here, right? Like they just seem like this insurmountable force of nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they are.
Nah.
Okay. You've surmounted
Until
them a few
Voyager, and then they
times.
become very easy to defeat every
Yeah, they're pushovers by Voyager.
Yeah.
All right.
Janeway
Well,
just kicks Borg ass.
That's that Janeway magic.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the,
I
all the
like
coffee.
Shelby,
I
actually.
really liked Shelby, yeah.
Damn, you are ambitious.
All right. Well, respect for Shelby, I guess. I don't remember which one Shelby is.
Yes.
Sarah, it is your turn. Which episode are you going to grace us with?
Okay, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to think about this, but I love Q. So let's talk about Deja Q.
Yes.
This is the episode where he becomes mortal for a little bit, and it's just it's so good. Okay, so like I think the cold open, I'm not sure if it's the cold open or right after the intro, when he shows up on the bridge of the Enterprise, and he's just, I'm pretty sure he's totes naked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, what is this? What is going on here? But I just love some of the moments that he has with the crew in this episode. And I think probably my favorite part is just he's like, what is this feeling? And it's like he's totally experiencing like the digestive system for the first time, and it's like he's experiencing like food and needing to like I can't remember what it is, but I think it's like some sort of cramp. And he's like, what is this? And he's just such a baby when it comes to any pain, which is, you know, it's something they do in Voyager 2 with the Doctor, but it's amusing to me. Yes. John Delancey he's brilliant. I love him. And my God, like, look at that face.
Red alert.
So real quick, the greatest moment of this episode, by the way, is also the greatest interaction between John Delancey and Michael Dorn, which is Michael knows where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Which is where Q is like, implores like, what must I do to convince you that I am no longer immortal? Worf just shoots back, die. And then Q retorts with, oh, that's really good. Eat any good books lately?
Oh, yeah.
My favorite part is when he goes to 10 forward and Guinan is there and she doesn't believe him, obviously. So her response is just to stab him with a fork.
Yep. Q
Oh,
was
man,
afraid
so
of
many
Guinan
good,
even
like-
before then.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Oh,
where we
man,
got
yes,
Guinan's great
yes.
cat food.
Yeah,
Like claw thing. Yes, love it.
Where did he get the outfit that he wears in this
The
Afterlife?
replicator.
Yeah,
Oh, I see. But
where we all
but,
get
like,
our outfit.
The grayish,
the weird gray thing with the
onesie.
crotch issue.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh yeah.
There's so many
Civilian
crotch issues
clothing
on
in this show.
Yeah,
Oh,
TNG is all about badges.
It sure is.
Like you could replicate anything, and you're going with a beige jumpsuit. Okay, like
He's immortal. He has no taste. He has no need for taste.
that's true.
He should have been
No.
wearing a Hawaiian
No.
shirt though.
Exactly.
Someone picked that up for him.
You remember
Sure.
when he was like the mariachi
Oh
band
my
leader?
God.
He could have replicated
See, that was comment
Yeah.
carefully hides. Oh, and now the
Disney.
banner's hiding it. Whoop.
Here we go.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. Yep. It's,
Oh
it's
my.
right
Powerful
there.
energies at work here.
Yeah, there's a lot of casual batches on TNG.
This is why people tune in.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well,
Amazing.
that it's always good to have a Q episode. I'm glad we got one out early. Thank you for that. And then, Mikey, it's going to be your turn for finishing off round one. What
Mhm.
will your choice be?
I'm so excited because I did not get sniped for this. I have trouble answering the question what my favorite Next Generation episode is. It probably is The Best of Both Worlds because it's basically a movie and functions as one in that way. But I was looking over my list and looking at episodes and trying to find one that sort of embodied what I like best about the show more generally. And I decided that I would first pick The Offspring, which is the one where Data creates a child. And to me, there's two modes that I enjoy in the Next Generation and that it excels in. And one is kind of like silly, fun episodes where the ship is shown as sort of a community of people who get along and they're all sort of lighthearted pals. And the show can be kind of goofy and kind of awkward, but in a way that's really charming. And then serious things where like use the show as a platform to discuss philosophical and social issues and pose like interesting thought experiments. And to me, The Offspring excels in both. Like the first half of this episode has a lot of really funny, charming moments. I don't know the actor who plays Lal, Data's child, but they do a fantastic job with the physical comedy. But at the same time, even before things start to go south, there are a lot of moments. Like I think about the scene where Picard takes Data to task for just creating a child without asking permission. And Data's kind of like, other people don't need to ask permission before they have babies. And it makes me think about how minority populations who are have to justify sometimes the having of babies. You know, are these people having too many babies? That's a threat to us. Like that is a thing that exists in our society, and the fact that Data reproducing is somehow threatening is something that sort of goes into the whole problems of what Data's status is and how he is sort of not fully accepted within Federation society necessarily. And there's a lot of unease and uncertainty around that, more generally speaking. It also has like such a progressive gender thing. Like Star Trek's good for this generally. It doesn't like bat 1,000, but oftentimes they will really be quite ahead of their time on social things. And Data creates his child genderless and lets the child choose its gender. And so Lal decides she wants to be female. And that's fantastic for like 25, 30 years ago, however long ago this was. And of course, it's very, very tragic. Lal does not survive the episode. Her brain is not stable and Data can't save her. And he works really hard to try and save her. And it's very sad. So you get the whole gamut of emotions. I love this episode.
Yeah,
Hallie
it's
Todd.
definitely a good one.
Hallie Todd is the name of the actor who plays Lal. She also got to play Blanche's niece on an episode of The Golden Girls.
See, the two cinematic universes together.
It is the same universe.
Lal is the bridge.
Confirmed.
I think I can't remember, Michael, but I
Mm-hmm.
think the reason Lal just chose female, I think it was from meeting either Crusher or Troy or someone. I think there was something about that, and I just thought that was really neat. Just kind of like being like, I want to be like this person,
Yeah.
which was kind of neat. Yeah. Yeah.
That's really an interesting way to think about how gender works. Like, is that kind of you imprint on someone who like does a performance of the gender that you really appreciate? Like, I want to be like that person. Like, that's a cool way to think about.
I fully agree that Blanche is Data's sister. That makes a lot of sense to me.
And I think we must talk about the fact that that Riker starts hitting on his daughter immediately.
Yeah.
That's where Star Trek doesn't do so great.
No, Data's whole "what are your intentions towards my daughter" is not a line that's aged well. But if memory serves, isn't it because Guinan gave Lal some advice and Lal kind of like aggressively kisses Riker,
Yeah.
kind of without his
Yeah.
consent?
Riker
Like,
doesn't hit on her so
yeah.
much as he gets smooched without his consent.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's fair, but it's Riker, so
That's
you
true.
know it's easy to extrapolate the other way.
I
But
love Troy's face there. She's so happy.
She's so... I love Troy.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is the beginning of a series of episodes throughout the whole run that revolve around the meaning of what it is to be a person and what rights you should get. Obviously, Measure of a Man takes that to its natural extension, but there's other episodes as well. But I think this is the first one that sets that springboard for the rest of them to come after, and then Picard just ruined that whole thing. The show, that is.
Yeah, I was so disappointed when Data's daughter was not Lol. Lol. Anyway.
Well,
Lol is my child, as on you'rethemanNowDog.com. So, like, I know Lal is her name, but Lol is how it is in my brain.
Yeah.
I think that's how Data pronounces it, is Lol.
yeah, he says lol.
I think it is Lol, yeah. Lol.
There's
Yeah.
no way to find out for sure. All right, that was round one. Some very excellent, lovely choices. Let's see what happens as we go into round two, where the points are doubled. Jared, you gave us Haven last time. Interesting choice. What are you going to follow that up with?
I'm going to go with something that's actually widely recognized as good. The episode Sarek, where Spock's dad comes back.
Ooh.
It's such a heartbreaking episode, especially if you have relatives who are dealing with dementia or other age-related issues. I really like it because this is such a minor thing, but it has the best use of music in the show. Where like people are always playing string quartets or being like, "You coming to the Mozart concert in 10/4 tonight" or whatever. But in this one, the music actually matters to the plot. Like it sparks an emotional reaction from a Vulcan. And the way it uses legacy characters like Sarek, rather than being like the grouchy McCoy who shows up in Encounter at Farpoint, where it's like, oh, sort of cartoony and funny. It takes this sort of minor, but I think beloved character from before, and then it just shows how time has really, really messed with him, and everybody around him cares so much about him and is trying to preserve his dignity and everything, but also trying to deal with the fact that he clearly can't do his job the way he's supposed to be able to do. And I don't know that Star Trek really handles age all that well sometimes. But this episode, I think, really, really gets it. And just, my grandfather actually has a lot of the same, I mean, not Bendy syndrome, but like emotional outbursts, that kind of thing. And everybody trying to like cocoon him and trying to make sure that what the public sees is not the same as what you're seeing in private. It just really, really hits home for me. So it's a really good episode, a really tough episode. And I respect it for not like finding a magical cure for what's wrong with Sarek. You just have to deal with the fact that he's an old man and he's going to get older.
Absolutely.
Also the clothes.
Yes.
Also the clothes.
Yeah, you should see
Always
Sarek's
the
badge.
clothes.
Yeah, that is a wonderful
I
episode.
love that actor too.
Yeah, Mark Leonard reprising his role from the original
so
series.
Good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and in the movies too. Like, yeah, Mark Leonard is probably the only person aside from Leonard Nimoy who could like play a Vulcan and like not have it come across as smug and douchey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also play a Romulan in the original.
And
series.
a Klingon in the original movie. Yes.
Did he?
He's the Klingon captain in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
No kidding. Wow, I gotta. Okay,
Oh,
my mind
really?
is good.
Nice.
I wonder what
love that
actors
stuff.
played the most species on Star Trek.
Jeffrey
Jeffrey
Combs.
Combs,
It's
right?
Jeffrey Combs.
Okay.
Jeffrey Combs definitely has played. I think he's probably had 20 different character roles throughout the run. Yeah.
Star Trek from Deep Space Nine onwards is just oops, all Jeffrey Combs.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
You're
All right.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I like what Jared's pointed out about how Star Trek isn't always great about depicting old age. Because if you're in this sort of utopia where science has solved all of humanity's problems, where does that leave age? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I also appreciate what you appreciate about it, that there is no easy fix. There's no sort of scan that Beverly can do on his brain and then it's all better. Like,
Yeah.
They should get on that.
And the solution to the temporary solution to the issues is just having Sarek displace all of his emotions onto Picard.
Yeah.
And that scene is so I think it could so easily be ridiculous, but watching Patrick Stewart sit in the dark and cry, feeling somebody else's pain, is such a weird, chilling, and kind of terrifying moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we have to make a graceful transition to the next episode, which may be a silly one. Who knows? Kozik, you give us cause and effect first. What are you going to follow that up with?
Chris, you know me all too well. After 2 heavy-duty kind of morals and messages, I think we need a palate cleanser. So we're going to talk about another season 1 episode, Conspiracy. Episode 25.
Oh no!
I love Conspiracy. This was on my list.
Okay, great. So yes, similar to Haven, it's a classic season 1 episode where the show really has no idea where it's going, what it wants to do, what its tone is. It leans on a lot of the kind of things that I think worked really well for the original series, but really do not work well for Next Generation. But Conspiracy has this going for it. It has some of the best claymation animation you'll ever see. And Chris, if you can please pull
it's
up.
coming. It's coming.
Okay.
Oh, it's so good.
So, of course, to recap, the premise is that there seems to be, there it is.
Oh, yes.
My favorite.
You know, in this age of VFX where you can just have a battle of a billion starships exploding and the cameras moving around in Z space, just to see that brilliant RoboCop 2-esque claymation alien pop out of a chest and explode is the great. And I mean, it explodes like it's chunks and pieces. It's so fantastic. There's something we lost when we went away from practical effects, is all I'm going to say. But the premise is also kind of hilarious because it doesn't really tonally fit, which is there's a deep conspiracy where everybody in Star Trek it's basically the precursor to QAnon. Where everybody in Star Trek is being taken over, and there's some nefarious alien race that's controlling us very through the upper ranks of Starfleet, and it's up to Riker and Picard to find out where the conspiracy is coming from and head it off of the past. And the one giveaway that is, if somebody's in the conspiracy, is they love to eat mealworms, which is, you know, kind of a big giveaway, I think. And of course, the little tails of the aliens that stick out of the necks of everybody that has the aliens inside of them. So I want to open this up to the floor to discuss, because I know everybody loves this one too.
So before we do that, and avert your eyes for the squeamish, this isn't that bad, but it might be. In 3, 2, 1, here we go.
Yes.
Yep. The first head explosion in Star Trek.
Star Trek used to come on in the middle of the afternoon when I was like 7 or 8, and I can remember seeing that when I was very young.
I mean, I recognize that this is like a frame in the middle of something, but unless it lingers on screen for quite a while and shakes and rattles before finally exploding, I don't know. But that was
kind of does.
It
kind of does.
Oh,
yeah.
goody. Oh, goody.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
Well,
that's
this is the
true.
thing. This vast conspiracy, like, it's kind of left. It's a totally. They don't come back to it ever.
Yeah, because they were originally going to come back to
No.
it. This is a great thing that season 1 did that they dabbled with on and off, but like there were hints of serialization even then. Like there's an earlier episode in which the Admiral who is taken over by the brainworms is actually talking about rumblings of a conspiracy throughout Star Trek. It's called Coming of Age, or throughout throughout Starfleet rather. And there's a follow-up episode to this, the very next episode, where Romulans are concerned because their outposts are being destroyed. That was originally going to lead into the return of these bug monsters, but it was too expensive to produce, so instead we got the Borg.
I mean, I like the Borg better. If I had to choose, I'd pick the Borg. But I love these. They're such a weird thing.
Yeah, in fairness, it's a good thing they didn't do that, because otherwise there would be no difference between Star Trek Next Generation and Stargate SG-1, basically.
Yeah.
Because it's the same. SG-1 is if you took the bug people to its natural progression.
TNG did it first. What I love about this episode is that it does something, and it's something I like about kind of like this grab bag era of the first season of TNG, which is that for the first time they're trying out, it's like, all right, what's something that's never been done in Star Trek? I know, John Carpenter-esque paranoia. And I think that's a really interesting fit, and it's like Star Trek shouldn't be horror all the time, but like when it melds with horror, oftentimes it's successful. Even if the episode itself is not completely successful, like something like Night Terrors, which I don't think works very well, it leaves you with something memorable. It leaves you with something kind of haunting that works in that space, that safe space of Star Trek.
Yeah.
I mean, that definitely feels like a road that Voyager should have gone down a few more times.
Mm-hmm.
Voyager could have gone down so many roads.
Yeah, they chose the safest.
We'll do the Star Trek Voyager episode draft some other time, I think.
I do love Night Terrors. I know it's not top tier, but I love it because it goes for these weird haunting things like the bodies sitting up and all that.
Same here. It's like I love scenes of Night Terrors. Yeah. It's just as a whole, it doesn't quite work.
Okay, well, Adam, your first pick was the Best of Both Worlds Part 1. I can only assume that you're not going to leave us, you're not going to edge us, and you're going to give us the Best of Both Worlds Part 2.
That's tempting, but no. I was about to say conspiracy, so instead I'm going to talk about season 1 some more. Season 1 of Star Trek TNG is essentially one great big Star Trek shitpost. It is frequently terrible, but I have to talk. If we're going to talk about episodes that are just amazingly bad, then we have to talk about Justice, in which Wesley Crusher is sentenced to death because he stepped in a flower pot. And don't get me wrong, as we've discussed, it's like there are good episodes in season 1. There's about 5 of them, but there's still good episodes. And Justice is Star Trek. See, the thing I find about Star Trek is that when it's good, it's very good. But when it's bad, it's deliriously entertaining. And Justice is one of the worst episodes of TNG. And I love it for all that reason. You have characters visiting a sex planet. So you have batches on display. There's a lot of moose knuckles and camel toes as people jog around this mall, and it's like, welcome to Sex Planet. Let's all have a party. And then one of the young girls hits on Wesley Crusher, and she keeps giving him these innuendos, but she's like completely innocent. But it's just the writers feeding her these innuendos, and Wesley Crusher gets all these dorky lines like, I don't know how, which just makes you hate him all the more. It's a fantastic episode that is there if you like to point and laugh at Star Trek sometimes, and all Trekkies do.
Amazing.
I was so hoping.
Oh my goodness, Chris, you got a great one.
So not to bag on it again, but it's pretty much like Florida was a planet.
The existence of just like a sex planet is a very original series sort of thing to do, but with like a different production code instead of.
Well, that's Ryza. That's
Ryza's a little more like. I think it's different from this one. This one's just like. Ryza's more like Space Hawaii. If that makes sense. Like you go climbing or whatever. This is just a sex planet.
Mm-hmm. Right, you don't need a Horrigon to get busy on this planet.
They're all just wearing like pink napkins and they're all blonde and white. It's like
what's that? You want proof of the batches? You want proof of the batches?
Yeah. It's Plato's Retreat at the Mall of America.
I love.
You've got innie and outie batches here on display.
I love TNG's. We're gonna make the men the most naked kind of approach there.
Yep. Oh my god.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's trying to do social commentary about like being too absolute in the law and order system and everything, but it's like,
why is it a sex planet? Why is that
and why is Wesley's crime that he stepped in a flower pot?
I don't know. Like I do honestly think that the notion of the, what are they called? Like punishment zones or something, whatever they're called, where like in that area, nobody knows where it is, but in that one area, it changes every day. If you break a rule there, you just get killed. I think that's weirdly interesting.
So weird.
I think
wish that the crime wasn't like breaking a greenhouse or whatever it is he does, and then like in the middle of.
Well, if you look at the age range, it's almost like maybe that's how they instituted their Logan's Run Sandman policy by making sure nobody lives past the age of 33 because you'll inevitably run into one of these justice zones and screw up and sorry, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man!
I
Wow.
believe they call their
The image
batches
search
the
for this
Justice
one was
Zone.
real good.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, they are basically wearing like you said, napkins. It's and with, like a little bit of stitching in between to make it close.
I was like, there has to be an image with Wesley in it somewhere on here, and I finally found one.
Yep. Oh god.
Oh, those
Another
sweaters.
revolting outfit for Wesley.
Yeah, what is with that? Why does he always get the
Oh
worst?
man, I kind of
I'll have everybody notice where the guy's
shoulder.
eyes are looking.
I was about to say, the guy in the middle is checking Wes out really hard. Like,
Yeah, these people are down for anything.
And he's and like an AC/DC song, he's holding a ball by his balls.
There you go. Oh God!
Wait, does he have like side slits on those shorts?
Yeah, he does.
Oh, man, they do.
Oh yeah, he does.
Of course, obviously. Shorts are just too restrictive.
wow.
Wow! What a episode! What a TV show we're talking about today, everybody.
It has range.
I guess we need to move on. Sarah, you gave us Deja Q. What? You got another Sex Planet episode as well?
Oh well. No, I knew no one was gonna snipe this one because I don't think anybody likes it as much as I do. But still season 1. Sorry for the. I guess we're going on a bit of a a streak here. But it's Encounter at Farpoint.
Ooh.
Oh,
Interesting choice.
And I know people love to hate it. But for me, I think there's a lot of things about it I love. And number one is that when I watch Encounter at Farpoint, it's usually when I'm starting a new rewatch of the whole series, and it's like, oh, it's my friends again. I love these people, and it's just so. It's just associated with that good feeling of I'm back at it. I'm watching TNG, and I love all of these characters. And then there's all these little things where you're getting little hints of character that they don't really know what to do with yet. Nope, for sure. But it's I don't know. It's like seeing like the baby versions of everyone. And then I do love the like premise with Q of like, should we stop humans from going any further? Which is interesting. You're warlike, blah, blah, blah. And even some of the things in this episode ended up kind of being a little predictive of things that are happening now. Like the soldiers with the nose inhaler thing. What is the nose drugs?
Yeah.
Drugs.
Those drugs.
Like that. I that's something that we in current day have experimented with. It's like some sort of like mind altering kind of wartime drugs for people to take. Even I think it was like when I was reading about it, it was in through the nose. Like it was like, what? How did someone think this was a good idea? Have they watched Encounter at Farpoint?
Evidently not.
Apparently not. And then there's a lot of also like bad cultural representation. Not gonna ignore that in this episode, but it does introduce Q, and God, I just love him in those judge robes. It's great.
Yeah.
You're really
So, yeah,
carrying
it's-
water for Q on this panel, which I am totally thumbs up. Like,
Yeah, I am a huge Q fan, and that was my challenge, was like, do I not pick 3 Q episodes? Interesting thing about Encounter at Farpoint, the saucer separation segment is longer than what this
Yes.
video is going to be.
This is the
And
kind
I
of thing.
love that Trek ship, like
The ship porn,
Like-
it's what it is.
ship porn. Yes, that's what it is.
Well, it's kind of really luxuriating and taking its time. Like, there's very little story there. Certainly not enough to justify a 2-part episode, but it's a 2-part episode. So they're just going to have all these scenes that are just to create atmosphere or establish character, or just to like show that the ship can split into 2 parts and come back together. And I don't love Encounter at Farpoint, but I appreciate how weird it is, because it's a really
Yeah.
weird like piece of television.
Well, I think there's a little symmetry there in terms of the length of that shot of the saucer sep and the reveal of the Enterprise in Star Trek the motion picture, which might even be longer than, I think that scene lasts like an hour, right? And I think the
Yeah.
reason for it is it's kind of like a remember your old friend, let's just bathe in the glory of this for a moment, you know. So it's the same thing. It's like you get to really take in the ship and go, oh man, I miss Star Trek so much.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
too many-
And my mom's an OG Trekkie, and like she told me about like watching that motion picture scene where they go over the ship, and she was like, she did not get bored for a minute of it. She loved
Yeah.
the whole thing, and it's that we're coming back.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean-
we've got stuff to do.
And we've got hats.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Chris, can you find Riker's babes that Q gives him at the end of the episode?
Yeah.
That happens in Deja Q.
Oh, that's Deja Q?
Yeah.
We could give Frozen Tashiar.
I thought he did that in Encounter at Farpoint, and then it was just more that Riker got Q powers in Deja Q.
No, Riker gets Q powers in Hide and Q.
Yeah. That's like 3 episodes in or something.
That's the
It's-
one
it's
with
not
the
that far
animal
away.
things.
Oh, the pig people, yes.
Yes.
The
Oh
pig
god, I
people,
found
yeah.
that so scary
Chris,
when I
can
was a
you
child.
find Chris,
Yes.
can you find a screenshot of the courtroom by any chance?
Mm.
Oh
I
God.
like the
Okay.
courtroom.
Where all
Of,
the
like, the
dwarves start
audience?
yelling at Picard.
I mean, Q's nuclear horror judge robe outfit is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah,
a
and
reason
I
they brought
just-
it back for the finale.
It's important to point out that Q was very menacing in this episode versus where his character was developed later on, where when he would show up, you're like, it's just going to be a fun episode. In this, he was very like, he's the villain.
Yeah. So here comes an imp to
Yeah.
torment Picard. Like,
Yeah. If only
Yeah.
the
There's still
pilot.
some.
Oh, I was just gonna say,
Sorry,
if
go
only the
ahead.
pilot to Star Trek had started off with Q showing up and taking them on that Robin Hood adventure he took them on in season 4.
now that would be a
Oh my
pilot.
goodness. Oh yeah.
Oh
Is this what we're
no.
looking for?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. And there's so much going on in the background here, and I love these Star Trek peeks into the past, but that is the future that we don't. You know, like they're trying to predict our future when they're looking.
And
at
in
their
one
past.
year, our present.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I know, and so it's
The horrifying dystopia
Yes,
that we are supposed to
problematic.
be entering into about now.
Another
so,
comment from.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I
Another
was
comment-
just gonna say, yeah.
Another comment from earlier from Kidao about the costumes for Wesley, etc.
Yeah.
Just
Mm.
yes,
Those
but
sweaters.
fantastic. What miserable looks. People. Anyway, I'll bite my tongue, I suppose. Mikey,
Mhm.
it is, I think, your turn. The last one you gave us was the Offspring. What will your second choice be?
Well, I'm sorry to say that we are leaving season 1 after quite a string there. Season 1 might end up being the season that has the most episodes on our combined list, which is interesting. I am going to choose Remember Me, which is a Beverly Crusher centric episode, and you don't get very many of them. And Gates McFadden is a fantastic actress whose talents went underutilized for a lot of the show. So I always appreciate when she has a chance to shine. This is the one where it opens up where her mentor and friend is on the ship. He's quite old now. Dr. Dalen Quace, I think his name is. And they are walking. And he is telling her about how sad it is because all of his friends are basically gone, as happens to you if you live to be quite old. And he feels very alone and isolated. And this is making me think about Jared talking about Sarek's episode. This is another sort of indication of aging in the Star Trek universe, and how even though it's supposed to be this utopia where everything is solved, you still get emotional pain and loneliness. Anyways, so then she goes to visit her son in engineering, and there's some sort of experiment going on, and then something happens. There's a weird blip or whatever, and she goes about her day, but Dr. Dalen Quace is no longer on the Enterprise. And then people start disappearing, and she's the only one who appears to notice that the crew is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And one thing I really like is when she's going through this and all these people she remembers are disappearing and no one else remembers them, the rest of the crew believe her and take it seriously as a problem to look into, which is really great that they don't just sort of write her off as having some sort of mental problem. They're like, this is a Star Trek. Lots of crazy things happen. We should take this seriously and investigate it. The line, if there's not something wrong with me, then there's something wrong with the universe, is just... that's refusing to be gaslit no matter what. And it's just a really satisfying piece of storytelling, a piece of character work that focuses on one of the characters that I find most interesting and satisfying, who doesn't get enough attention. And yeah, I especially like when it's just her and Picard and they're the only ones left on the ship, and she's trying to get him to remember the other people. She gives brief character descriptions of a few of them. And the other character who I feel gets underutilized and underserved by the writers, Troy loves chocolate. That's her character trait, to get Picard to try and remember her. It did Troy dirty so often on this show. But anyway.
Yep.
Yeah,
this episode is just brilliant.
She's a good follow on Twitter too. Gates McFadden.
Yes,
up.
thank you, Beverly. Thanks, Gates, for those gyrations.
Even I, who am not particularly a fan of the Stars Trek or, the Next Generation in general, do think this one's a pretty good episode. But apparently we have nothing else to say about it.
No, it's solid. It's a solid episode,
It is. And I think one of the most like rewatching it even recently, maybe a couple of years ago now, it really hit home to me when she goes to Picard and tells her about this, and he believes her. And that is important. Like you're saying she's being gaslit by the universe, but the people around her that know her, like in her head, she knows that they will support her, and I think that is just it's huge.
Yeah. I mean, you can think about Star Trek The Next Generation as kind of a workplace dramedy, and like it is the ultimate sort of like supportive workplace where like this is a community that works well together, and then there's a feeling of trust. And like, I don't have to hide this from my coworkers. They'll think I'm crazy. Like, I can bring this to them and they'll take me seriously. Like,
yeah, I think
I've always said that. Yeah, TNG is like my dream workplace.
Yes,
this is one of the episodes where Roddenberry's insistence that there's no conflict among friends in the future actually pays off, where it enables them to just believably trust her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
And Wesley saves her.
Now it's so that was an excellent choice, and we are going to go on to round 3. It's still anybody's game to see who's going to walk away with the finest episodes as we continue to pick from the collection of 178 Star Trek The Next Generation episodes. We are running a little bit long, so we might want to keep this one a little bit peppier, just a smidge, so that we have plenty of time to talk about viewer questions at the end, and we can all head out of here in time so that we can get food. We're all going to be very hungry. So that said, but yes, if you're watching this, feel free to say anything in the comments about things or whatever. Blah 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 blah. Words. Jared, we're going to start round 3 once again with you. You have given us Haven and Sarek. What will be your third choice?
There's so many to choose from. I'm going to go with one that I hadn't actually planned on going with, but since we're talking about Deanna Troi being underserved, let's go with Face of the Enemy.
Yes!
Yeah.
Deanna Troi wakes up as a Romulan on a Romulan ship and has to figure out what the hell is going on and why. It's great because, she's an empath. She can sense people's feelings, but normally it's like there's an angry alien on the screen and she's like, Captain, I'm sensing anger. And that's like her whole job. And most of the other good Troi episodes are like, oh, she's good at being a counselor or whatever. But this one enables her to use her empathy for like espionage, which is really cool and something that I think Star Trek doesn't do enough. It's got these races running around with telepathy and all these powers, and it's just like, I don't know, they're staying on Beta Z the whole time. Who knows? But like watching her just bluff her way through completely unfamiliar situations just by being arrogant and like yelling at people for having their own kind of food or whatever. Like there's the dinner table scene where the captain's like, try this thing, and she grabs the wrong dish and then has to cover for it by saying, oh, I've seen better versions of the other thing on garbage scows or whatever she says. Watching her stop being cuddly Troi and be like terrifying, angry Troi is really, really satisfying, and be good at it too. Like it works. And there's the Romulan shoulder pad, which we all need to look at.
I'm pretty sure that Troi got that jacket from Murphy Brown.
That's
This
Empire of Murphy's Brown.
This was going to be my choice for the third round, so you sniped me there. But what a fantastic episode. I totally agree. Troi has these powers, which the writers just don't use very often. And they really... She's the perfect character to put in this situation. And, like, she didn't choose it. She's basically been kidnapped and thrust into it. And, like, Troi is so often mistaken for just this sort of nothing puff of a character, and she absolutely has a spine of steel. And it shows in a few other episodes, but this is the one that's, like, the best example of it. Like, you do not fuck with Deanna Troi.
It is definitely a shame that as you said, it's like so many times when it would actually be helpful to have an empath, like she basically just gives advice that anybody could give, like just by using like psychology, like, and you're like, what, you have this power and you're not actually using it to it. So yeah, it's good to see that actually be used for once.
Yeah, and this is like the opposite of that episode Disaster or whatever it's called, in which Troi is put in charge of the Enterprise and is shown to be way too incompetent to handle it, much to Ensign Rose's chagrin. It's like, it's nice to get an episode like this where Troi is not defined by chocolate.
Well, the problem with Disaster, I think, is that Star Trek always has to use the idea of you have to have one character that is kind of your representation of the audience that has to ask questions to get information to drive the plot along. And usually that's Riker plays that part. But because Riker was in a different part of the ship, that meant that Troi had to be that character for the deal with Ensign Ro trying to plug like the phaser power into the warp drive or whatever dumb thing she did that O'Brien went like, that's a terrible idea.
All right. Well,
yeah, Disaster comes before Face of the Enemy. So I feel like maybe that's where she leveled up to being able to do Face of the Enemy.
Yeah, because she does basically put Ro in her place at the end of that episode, being like, shut up, I'm in charge, we're doing this. And she makes the right choice.
excellent. Love that episode as well. I will say that. Sorry. I started that sentence and realized I had no idea where I was going with it. I am clearly a little low blood sugar right now. That's okay. We're doing this live. Kozik, you've got Cause and Effect and Conspiracy. What is going to be choice number 3 for you?
So I've gone with a personal favorite. I've gone with a popcorn piece, and I think it's time for me to get into a heavy-duty moral episode, which is why I think we should talk about Booby Trap. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's so many on this list that we haven't touched that I'm like, I can't believe we haven't talked about most toys or Drumhead or any of these episodes that are just like great morality plays. But I want to talk about Chain of Command Part 2. Specifically because it's such a great meditation on torture, but it's also a meditation on how generations of divide can get bigger and bigger, and that the way that we treat other people then gets impressed. So the real key part of this episode is, of course, when I can't remember the name of the character actor that plays the Cardassian that's interrogating Picard, but his son comes in, and Picard is just completely shocked that he would just, let his son witness this terrible treatment of a human being. And it's like this realization that we're embedding this idea in our youth that this species is beneath us. They're not even on our level. So you wouldn't feel the same sorrow for seeing like, a plant being cut or something like that. And I think that's a really interesting thing that gets brought up in that episode. Of course, this brings us the famous 4 lights, which is just it's a saying in my household. But the other thing that I think is fascinating about this is that it turns some of the expectations that you would normally see on their head, and see that you set up this idea in episode 1 that Captain Angelico is going to be this hard-ass guy that's in the wrong. And at the end of the day, Riker's going to rally the crew to like overthrow him or whatever. But what you find out is that Riker's in the wrong and Angelico's in the right. And at the end of the day, Angelico's the reason for the success. And if you would have actually followed Riker's course of action, it might have ended in failure, which is like a good twist, because you just expect your main character to be in the right, and you expect this, and usually when it comes to Star Trek, when you introduce an ambassador or what is his role? He's admiral. When you introduce an admiral, they're usually crazy, and they're going to take you on a road to ruin, but not in this case.
Excellent. I don't know whether this screenshot that I found is from episode 1 or 2 or what, but I feel like due diligence requires me to share it.
Yeah, that's part 2.
Okay, good. There we go. More male nudity on the Star Trek.
I mean, Patrick Stewart adds so much to the show in general, but like he's extremely good in those episodes.
Man, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out he can act.
It's Star Trek at its best because it doesn't rely on ships exploding. It's driven by the dialogue. It's driven by the character interaction, which is the thing that you will find that is the biggest failing of New Trek.
Yeah, that's exactly right. These basically watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, you'll wish, it's like, boy, I wish there was more Picard, even a show called Picard. But then you realize that exists, and be careful what you wish for.
I'm hopeful.
Very few Star Trek shows have a good first season.
Hey, Star Trek: The Original Series had a great first season.
And apparently so did Next Generation, because you keep picking it. Speaking of which, Adam, you've given us Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and Justice. Do you have another Season 1 episode to round us out? I guess those weren't all Season 1.
I am going to go with kind of an unexpected episode. This one doesn't get talked about very much, and I think it's really enjoyable and really fun. And again, it boils down to fun character work, no earth-shattering stakes, just an interesting little bit of character work that gets interrupted by a slight Ferengi conflict at the end. I am talking about Season 2's Peak Performance, in which there is a war game between the Enterprise and a junk ship called the Hathaway that Riker is commanding. In the meantime, there is a expert in conflict and war who's on the Enterprise, and he's acting like a major dick. And this is one of the things they do with Pulaski that kind of like gives her a character arc and kind of like even if it doesn't successfully wrap her up as a character because they didn't know she wasn't going to be back necessarily, it does kind of give some closure in that her pointless conflict with Data is at an end, and she's actively rooting for him to try and beat this guy in a game called Stratagema. There we go. That's the Stratagema machine.
Yes.
and the dick guy. Yeah, this fusspot from another planet totally gets owned by Data in an unexpected way at the end of the episode. But yeah, there's lots of great moments like Worf building ships in the dark, and Riker interrupts him and he breaks his ship. and Wesley actually proving to be a good character for once, and using his intellect in a believable way and not a way that lobotomizes other characters. He's more just kind of sly than he is some kind of super genius. Anyway, peak performance. It's a great underseen, undervalued episode. Season 2.
I'm just going to add one more image.
Stratagema.
Yeah.
Cole Rami.
Amazing. I totally forgot about this
That's a good
episode, but you've made an excellent case for it. Season 2 gets lost in the shuffle in my mind sometimes.
Yeah, it's got a lot of great episodes.
I'm a fan of any episode that introduces a new game like Dom Jot or anything like
Dom
that.
Jot,
Just become
man.
part of the lore. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
I was just gonna say one point about Pulaski.
Mhm.
On a more recent rewatch, her character, like that actress is amazing. She's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, she's great.
And
Diana
I
Muldaur
think-
is great.
I think that, yeah, she's amazing. And I think the main reason a lot of people didn't like her is because we already really liked Crusher.
Yep.
Mhm.
And her antagonism of Data, because that's
Yeah.
another fan favorite, you know? So,
Mhm.
Exactly.
but
Believe you mean Data.
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, she's fantastic, and you really appreciate that character in that season.
Mhm.
If
Well.
you have an open mind.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. Very, very different than Crusher, but like actually adds something interesting to the crew dynamic.
Yep. And I think Pulaski had like a lot of potential, and she's got some great scenes with Worf throughout
Yeah.
season 2.
The tea ceremony.
Mm,
Yes.
They get each other.
yeah.
All right, Sarah, you have so far given us Deja Q and Encounter at Farpoint. Which Q episode will be your third one?
I've decided to go with a non-Q episode. So I had a moment of, oh man, there's so many episodes while I was thinking for my third one that I could cover, could bring up. But I'm going to go with Attached.
Mm,
Oh.
I love it.
Anyone? So this one is, I guess, it explores the Crusher Picard relationship dynamic, which is something I think I always enjoyed, always wanted more of, and so the premise being that they have these implants and they start to pick up on each other's thoughts, and it really explores both characters, more Crusher I would say than Picard. It goes into some of like her backstory, and it's in season 7 I believe. So It's about time they explore that. But yeah, I just love this episode and how it's kind of like a little camping trip. They're trying to escape these two warring factions, and they're camping.
Yeah.
and yeah, and they explore that relationship between Crusher and Picard, and I want it. They're so
Every
good
time.
together. They're so good.
Every
Yeah.
time I have coffee and croissant, I remember this episode.
Me too.
Yes.
Yes.
Not to hijack the episode, but when I think of a Crusher and Picard moment, I think of Picard's doppelganger in Allegiance. And if you could find Picard's leisure wear shot from Allegiance, where
Allegiance.
his doppelganger's sort of putting the moves on Crusher, but not. It's very weird.
Yeah. The only thing that rubs me
Oh,
the
yes,
wrong way
there
about
is.
this episode is the fact that, now that everything's all cleared up, they talk about how it's like, well, there's no reason why we can't enter a relationship. And Crusher basically says, yeah, but the writers have no plans for that, so I have to leave. And it's never brought up
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, it's almost
Mhm.
yeah. It's kind of
Yeah.
Well, they do get married at some point and then divorced in an alternate timeline.
In an alternate timeline.
So-
Yeah,
But
that we see for
that's
like
the
a few
real
seconds.
timeline. Picard
Yeah.
is not canon.
Oh, I mean,
Okay.
all,
And the
all good
movies
things.
are not canon either.
Oh, and one other thing I need to mention is the aliens that they do get captured by. I think is it the Kess?
And the
The
Brit.
planet's called Kesprit,
Mhm.
and then I believe they're captured by the Kess, and like that hooded uniform is just so cool.
Yeah.
Well, I found the cool outfit from a different episode. Um, from
Oh
from,
yeah.
from the Wesley Crusher line. Oh boy. All right.
Mhm.
Excellent choice. We're going to have one more pick, I believe. Mikey,
mhm.
you've given us the Offspring and Remember Me. What is going to be the final episode that we talk about before we talk about episodes quite quickly at the end?
Turns out that I am picking a fairly melancholy trio. Face of the Enemy was going to be my last pick, but I got sniped, but I'm glad that we got to talk about it. And I'm kind of... There's a few really sort of canonical, like, top 10 episodes that we've had a few of them mentioned, but a lot of them have gone unmentioned, so I'm going to pick one of them because I think it really is the show at its best, and that's The Inner Light. This is the one where Picard is sort of scanned by an alien probe and basically is lied out flat on the bridge, but he lives an entire life on an alien planet in this course of the 20 minutes or whatever that he's out. And it's a dying world. And I feel it really speaks to where we are right now in terms of our, unfolding ecological catastrophe that we are part of and living through, and kind of trying and failing to rise to the occasion of, this alien civilization isn't going to make it. And they sort of send this probe out into space so that someone will know that they lived and someone will know what their culture was like. And it's really quite a beautiful and melancholy and sad and interesting kind of episode. And again, Patrick Stewart is just such a gift as an actor to the show. Like a lesser actor, this would just be sort of corny. But this is just very touching. I don't really have a lot more to say about it, but it's just it's a beautiful science fiction short story told through the lens of Star Trek.
I think something Star Trek does a lot of is these kind of spotlights on climate change and how it can go so wrong. There's definitely several episodes between TNG, Voyager, Deep Space Nine that go into it, and it's like, yeah, still didn't get the message. But yeah,
Well,
they do explore it a lot.
It's interesting. I think Michael touched on it's like the fact that there's something that means that your society eventually will not be remembered in any way. Just look at Earth, right? It one day the sun will expand out and turn it to a cinder, which means anything in the course of human history that has ever been recorded or done is going to be erased to time, unless that we find some way to, go out among the stars as Star Trek has promised. Otherwise, we're doomed to basically having zero meaning behind anything that we've ever done.
Oh, that's arguable. But, we're doing it. Look, only a handful of people are watching this live, and only, maybe a few dozen people will watch it afterwards, although who knows? Tell your friends about this if you've been enjoying it. But hopefully it created meaning for the people who watched this, and hopefully we're all having a meaningful experience with each other. That meaning doesn't disappear when we die. We had the meaning in that moment.
It's the plaques and the golden records that were put on the Voyager probes, right? Like, in case,
Still out there.
some alien intelligence will have some evidence that we existed. Perhaps there's a small chance, but you have to take the chance.
Sorry, I didn't mean that to come off. I meant more about the impermanence of time is kind of what I was going for.
Yes,
absolutely.
No, that's
and like this is kind of both sort of memento mori on a large scale, but also kind of I don't know, like it's Picard lived that life, so it had meaning for him as well as the people in the ancient, now extinct civilization.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. The meaning is in the emotion, something.
And he learned,
Something like that.
he learned how to play the penny whistle because of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And he gets
While we're-
that penny whistle at the end. It's in
Mhm.
the probe, right? So like,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
comes back a couple times. We get that music theme from it. Oh, so good.
Yeah.
While we're thinking about the series at large, as before we bring out our dead and talk about the episodes we didn't talk about, we had a question from the audience, which seems interesting. I never really watched TNG. Can you explain why you think the series did so well? Mostly watched DS9 growing up. So what in particular do you think did really well for you with the Next Generation, and especially in comparison with some of the other Star Trek shows?
Well, Deep Space Nine. So Deep Space Nine is probably actually my personal favorite. So I kind of understand that perspective. But as time has gone on, I recognize the TNG is probably the superior series, because Deep Space Nine because it's basically from season 3 on to 7. You get this kind of continuity that you're probably not going to get from TNG. But the freeing of being in a big story arc allows TNG to explore things that I don't think Deep Space Nine necessarily could touch on so much, because it was so, a slave to the kind of the war arc, right? Whereas TNG is not a war arc story. It's just an exploration story, which allows it to kind of go to some different places. Of course, the acting and the writing is like top notch once you get past season 1.
Jared mentioned earlier the range. I think that really is. You have so many different styles of stories. You can have a detective story. You can have sort of a fun comedy. You can have a workplace drama. You can have a science fiction kind of thing where you're encountering, like we never talked about Darmok, but you can have like encountering an alien who you just cannot understand their language.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah,
but
sorry.
yeah, like it's
Chakra, then the walls fell.
it's so adaptable, and you can tell so many different kinds of stories, and they all come from this sort of fairly safe space. You know this crew, you know this ship, you're familiar with these characters, you have very nice positive feelings, they're all friends. The ship itself is very well lit and very safe. So you're starting at this safe point, and then you can go into these unexpected places.
And also to add to that, it's like, one, I do think that it's the range of stories, but it's also that the USS Enterprise is the perfect vehicle to tell those stories, where you're going to all sorts of uncharted planets or areas of space, or you're just exploring future technology, whether that's the holodeck or an exocomp. And you've got so many interesting things that you could do. You've got this amazing cast. You've got an incredible budget for a TV series at the time. There are no bounds. And one of the things that I think kind of lends it a certain amount of popularity over Deep Space Nine, and comparable and often surpassing the original series, is that you have a variety of tone. Whereas like Deep Space Nine, it's like you're in that war for a long time, and there's not a lot of breaks from that. And with Voyager, you're stuck in the Delta Quadrant and the race to get back home. And while there's moments of joy and variance and emotion within that, there's still this pressing issue. It's like the Enterprise in the original series in TNG is free to be the Enterprise and go on all these fun stories with characters you want to be around for an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Jared or Sarah, do you have anything you want to add on that before we move on to
I feel like-
bringing out our dead?
I don't know if this is going to actually mean anything outside of my own brain, but I feel like Deep Space Nine is my personal favorite. I think it's a better TV show, but I feel like The Next Generation is maybe better sci-fi because of the exploratory aspect, because it's able to go and do all these things and get completely ridiculous in a way that Deep Space Nine can't because of its format. So yeah, just adding that to the pile of, the range and everything. But yeah, it's really interesting sci-fi that Deep Space Nine can't quite touch.
I think Adam just said it so eloquently. I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Then we will move on to bringing out our dead, as we like to say, even though that's a terrible phrase in some ways. But we're going to list the things that were on everybody's short list. You all have about a minute and a half or so each to do this. So, Jared, you gave us Haven, Sarek, and Face of the Enemy. Oh, before you start, if anybody in the audience has any episode that you wish that we had talked about, this is your time to put it in chat, and we'll bring it up at the end. So, Jared, Haven, Sarek, and Face the Enemy, what else was on your list?
Yesterday's Enterprise, Phantasms, of course, the Pegasus, Lower Decks, Ensign Row, Chain of Command, Darmok, the Inner Light, the Drumhead, and Family.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know half of those at the very
Well, they're all really good, Chris.
Okay, I'm sure they are. Kozik, you gave us Cause and Effect, Conspiracy, and Chain of Command Part 2. Were all of your choices beginning with the letter C?
No, they were not. I kind of, like I said, I grouped them into popcorn pieces, personal favorites, and then like really heavy, great super episodes. So on the popcorn pieces, I would put The Royale. I would say also Hollow Pursuits is a good popcorn one, and Devil's Due are fun popcorn episodes, right? But then on the serious front, I mean, episodes I would have loved to talk about if we had more time. Tapestry, most definitely. I think I mentioned it earlier. Drumhead and Most Toys. Most Toys has never made me hate a character more than I hated Data's captor. It's a visceral. I have a hard time watching that episode because I get so angry at him, right? And then I had some things that kind of sat in between. The other people mentioned like Darmok, A Realm of Fear. I thought is an interesting episode. It kind of explores phobia. Also because I'm a fan of Barkley, and I had Pegasus on my list as well.
Excellent. All right. Adam, you gave us the Best of Both Worlds Part 1, Justice and Peak Performance. What else have you been thinking about?
Well, previously talked about is I had Sarek and Conspiracy. And in addition to that, I had A Matter of Honor, which is a great Riker episode in which he serves aboard with some Klingons. Fantastic. Devil's Due, in which a lady pretending to be the devil tries to have sex with Picard very desperately. Deja Q, which was mentioned before. All Good Things. Tapestry, my favorite Q episode, and a very moving episode. Possibly the most moving in Trek. Heart of Glory, the first Worf episode from season 1. And Cause and Effect, which was mentioned, Cupid, and Time Squared, in which Picard meets his double after the double's Enterprise is destroyed.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Sarah, you gave us Deja Q, Encounter at Farpoint, and Attached. What else have you been thinking about? I know we didn't give you much time beforehand to make a list.
I'm not going to necessarily give you episode titles, but there's the episode where what is it? It's a weird geometric shape that becomes sentient, and the Enterprise basically has a baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Crusher's
That's a Voyager
sex
episode.
candle.
The sex candle.
Loxana Troy's dresses. There's one that looks almost like she's wearing a thong on the outside. It's amazing. Q flashing in puppies. And Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. Their sails unfurled.
All right, excellent. And finally, Mikey. And I don't know if anybody else in the audience has any suggestions, but Mikey, the Offspring, Remember Me, and the Inner Light, what other things were on your list?
Well, high up was Timescape, which is the one where the Romulan Warbird and the Enterprise are both frozen in time, and Geordi, Troy, Data, and Picard are coming back from a conference, and you get some lovely character moments between them on their shuttle, and then they have to save the day, and that's great. Let's see. Face of the Enemy got sniped. Darmok. Everyone knows Darmok. We don't need to talk about Darmok. Darmok's amazing. Tapestry, so amazing. Attached, that got sniped. Chain of Command, that got sniped. The Best of Both Worlds got sniped. Q Who, which is where they introduced the Borg, terrified me as a child. I love it. The next phase where Geordi and Ro die, but they don't actually die. I love that one. I really like Disaster. I think that's a great episode.
I love Disaster.
It just puts so many different crew members in extremis, and it's so fun to see how they react and The Chase, where we get the in-universe explanation for why so many aliens are basically humans with lumpy foreheads, which I really appreciate as world building.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yep.
All right, excellent. Audience, I haven't seen any other suggestions come up, so I'm assuming that we have fully satisfied and slaked your need for frakes.
Never. Unquenchable.
So on that note, unless something pops up in just a second. Nope, doesn't look like it will. Okay, I would like to thank all of my guests here today: Stephen Kozik, Mikey Collins, Jared Pekacek, Adam Clark, and Sarah Wilson. Oh my God, the brain farts were looming as I was doing that. I could feel them creeping up behind me. And of course, I'd like to thank Basky for being very cute in the background here. I've been Chris Puma, your host. We will be back in, I think, 2 weeks with another topic on Take Your Pick. And we will do the other Star Treks someday. So, on that note, thanks for watching. Please like, follow, subscribe, whatever the right thing to do is on the platform you're watching this. And bye.
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 Oh, you can do the thing. I can't do the thing.
Oh, you can't.
I really.
You can't do it?
I don't have those muscles.
What?
You know,
Really?
I didn't have
Oh,
those
no.
muscles, but I practiced when I was a kid. I got like a pen or something and just did that until I could do it with
You
each of my
developed.
fingers. Yeah, you just gotta work out, Mikey. I don't know why you don't work out.
I know.
It'll be interesting if you do other Star Trek series, because good luck finding someone who could find 3 episodes of Enterprise that they like.
All right, we might not do
I bet I
all
could
of
do it.
them.
I could do